Welcome to From the Shed End. You're now listening to episode 118. As always, myself, Theo, and the other Theo as well. How you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Just about recovered from the Wembley heartbreak on Sunday. Sixth time in a row now. We've lost domestic cup competitions,
Mhm.
but yeah, other than that, my week's gone off to a good start. Won my pub quiz on Monday.
Result.
We won a £50 bar tab to use up next Monday, which is going to be nice after our five-a-side footy. So yeah, that kind of made a Monday a lot more enjoyable. And then won my other five-a-side game last night, and looking forward to the game tonight. Dare I say? But yeah, good week so far. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Honest question we've got to ask: Are you working on the Tuesday? Because I mean, £50 bar tab could be a bit. I mean, I don't know. Actually, I was in London on Monday, and the pints in London £7-8 a pint. I mean, Jesus, it's yeah, it's extortion. Just shots £8 a pint. So yeah, the bar tab get you a couple of maybe 2 rounds of drinks in. But yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. Usual, just as you said, you very touched on just then around that the disappointment on Sunday with the final. But looking forward to tonight's game, which we'll get into, I'm sure, later on. But if you haven't already, if you're new to this channel, if you're new to the podcast, please go and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you go to the Linktree link in the description, and you can follow our social accounts, and our previous episodes are also available to listen back to as well. But let's take it back to Sunday, which I think we both went into that game with a bit more hope, I suppose, than expectation of winning, but we wanted to see a good performance. We knew obviously key injuries were going to be out for Liverpool in the League Cup final. I mean, what went wrong for us? I mean, where did we start in terms of the first half? Let's start with the lineup in the first half. I mean, that was probably the best place to start. But what do you think went wrong for us, and how we couldn't really cope with Liverpool in the first 10-15 minutes of the match?
I thought maybe there was a bit of nerves and experience in this team. A lot of those players, I think, like Poch and some of the players themselves mentioned in the build-up, it's their first time playing a final, first time playing at Wembley. So there would have been a couple nerves. In terms of the actual, maybe that's how Klopp set up. We wanted Liverpool to bring the game to Chelsea in the opening 10, 15 minutes or so. But I did feel like we slowly found our groove. We kind of got into the flow of the game. It's extremely disappointing though, because I don't think there was a better chance or occasion to play Liverpool considering their injuries. We spoke about it in the previous recording, and there were still a couple big names still being assessed ahead of kickoff, the likes of Salah, Darwin Nunez, Szoboszlai as well. I know all those players didn't feature at all. So yeah, it felt like it was our biggest opportunity and our biggest chance to beat Liverpool in the cup final. Um, that being said, I don't think we played badly. You look at the Raheem Sterling offside goal that Jackson was offside in the build up. It was very, very thin margins, wasn't it? It was maybe a toenail. We saw it before with the Lukaku goal in 2022 in the League Cup final. Is very similar to that. And I did feel like we created a lot of chances, but it's just been a story of our season. We just haven't been clinical enough, and we don't take those chances. For instance, when Palmer missed that big chance in the first half, credit to Kelleher, he made a fantastic save from point blank range. I thought to myself, okay, we've missed this chance, but if we can create those type of chances, get in those type of spaces, the goal's going to come. It's only a matter of time. But then 90 minutes, no goal. 120 minutes, no goal. And then 118th minute, I think it was, Van Dijk pops up and scores for Liverpool. So yeah, really frustrating afternoon. And I think what frustrates me even more is the fact we played well. We probably deserved something from that game, but once again, we didn't get it.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely yeah, I'm still am 50-50. I feel like we had spells where he played really well, and were times we were just opened up, we were too exposed. It was too easy for Liverpool to get the ball from front to back. It was just easy for them. They were able to get through our defensive line so calmly, and that worried me, especially the start of the game. It was just too easy. And I think maybe nerves was a massive factor. Like you said, this is the first time a lot of our players were playing in a final. So, I remember looking at Levi Colwell the first sort of 10-15 minutes, and it was just, again, maybe nerves was playing a massive part. Dezazi as well. I thought Malo Gusto again. There's a couple of times when the ball was switched over to him, and the ball would go out for a throw, and it's just a missed touch of the ball, and just things like that. I mean, he grew into the game. I thought, eventually Malo Gusto had a really good game, but it's just those little things that they have to go your way on the day. You have to be able to be cool and calm, composed, going into the game. Like you said, we had very good chances, very good chances to score in that game. Cole Palmer, Jackson had a good chance. Sterling had a goal ruled offside. We did everything we could, I think, but score in the game. So, the positives are there to take, but you hit the nail on the head. This is probably the best and only time you can play Liverpool, and you go into that game, especially when the lineups were announced, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. But when you go into a game and you look at the two benches and you see that we had like Madweki, Mudrik on the bench, Christopher Nkunku was on the bench, and you look at Liverpool's bench and you think, they haven't played a final either. Some of these haven't played a Premier League game, or they only made their debut the week before against Luton. So we should have been able to go into that game with the confidence of, yes, we don't win 90 minutes, but see the game out in extra time, at least get to penalties, at least. And there was an opportunity in the first half, in the 90 minutes, sorry, where obviously Van Dijk's goal was ruled out. I think it was Endo who was obstructing Levi Colwell, who Endo was in an offside position at the time when the ball was being delivered in. But there were signs there that the threat was going to come from Van Dijk or one of those set plays. We were mismatched in defence, I thought, in terms of our marking. I think Ben Chilwell, I think, was trying to mark Van Dijk at one point. Do you think that was just down to what we'd probably trained during the game, during the week before the game? Or did it go wrong on the day? Because it was a very mismatch. Kanate, Van Dijk, two big centre-backs, and we've got probably the smallest players on our team trying to mark them.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what you said before, I feel like there were some players that just didn't look comfortable. I think Disasi being one of them, slipping a lot, giving the ball away. You mentioned Gusto, his first touch, letting it go out for a throw-in. But credit to him, like you said, he really grew into the game. And I thought his the way he regained possession at times, and he was almost on the ground and managed to get a foot in to get the ball back. He did really well. Enzo, another one. I felt like he struggled a bit, misplacing a lot of passes. And in regards to what you said about maybe being able to counter what Liverpool did and have that big kind of aerial threat from Van Dijk and Kanate, I think the fact that at first Van Dijk goal was ruled out for an offside, I'm still struggling to see how it was offside, if I'm completely honest. I think we were all a bit confused in the stadium when it went to VAR, because it's quite rare to score a header from I think it was a corner or a free kick and be offside, especially when he kind of ghosted in from the back of the penalty box. But we've got to just do better. I think that's something we should have done in training, in the build up to the game. But like you said, Chilwell trying to mark Van Dijk, and I think it was Mudrik for the actual goal itself. Yeah. He just didn't look like he knew what he was doing. And I think the last play you'd expect to be on Van Dijk is a player like Mudrik, given his height and his build. But yeah, it was poor. I think alarm bell should have been ringing for the first goal. And I think given the amount of breaks we've had at half-time and then at full-time, and then the break in between the two halves of extra time, that should have given Pochettino and his team enough opportunities to kind of talk about that, find ways to deal with it, but we didn't. So yeah, that's just something maybe that really cost us on Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just, I mean, we're going to get on to aftermath of the game, but I wanted to talk about Petrovic, who, for me, both goalkeepers, but more so Petrovic from our perspective, had blinders. They played really well. Petrovic really kept us in the game. You think about some of the saves he pulled off, especially early on in the first half, and then there were spells even in extra time and in the second half of the game. Just a very controlled and calmed performance from him, which I think we needed at the back, especially early on with those mistakes that we've just highlighted from the defence. But Petrovic played really well. Unlucky for him, he seems like he's kind of trying to cement himself as the number one for Chelsea going forward, and he's probably got a very good shout and a very good case to keep his place now, especially for tonight.
Yeah, definitely. What I really enjoyed with my seat, I thought going into the game I'd be sat in the low upper section. By the time I was in the lower section, right behind the goal, actually, almost in like the central position, right behind the goal. So I got a really good view of kind of how Petrovic was with dealing with shots, how he was getting to ground early, how he was talking to his defense. And I think someone who plays goalkeeper and five-a-side, it was actually really interesting to see. And like you said, a lot of the other players maybe were nervous before the game, but he didn't look nervous at all. I saw him in his warm up. He was just chatting away with the coaches. He was helping Sanchez, and I think it's Bettinelli do their drills as well. And he just seems like he's really settled in at Chelsea since that Everton game where he was called upon after Sanchez's injury. And like you said, he's got a really good case against his name to be our first choice goalkeeper for the remainder of the season. And it's going to be really hard for Robert Sanchez to come back in, especially should we not get a result now in the FA Cup. You do wonder where the opportunities are going to come for rotation, especially for our goalkeeper. There's going to be an interesting one tonight, actually. I think this is the only opportunity that Sanchez might have cup competition to maybe get back into the team, but I don't see why you drop a goalkeeper who's in red hot form at the moment.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll get on to our predicted lineups for Leeds. But Raheem Sterling, another one who we've said on here a number of times, is someone who has to, be the leader in the team, the voice, the one with the experience. He's played for some really good managers previously. He's played for Liverpool. He's played for Manchester City. Going into that final, you kind of, whether he wanted to or not, you kind of had to look at him as the most experienced player on the pitch for us, and the one that should have been able to make something happen in a final. Van Dijk done that. He showed the difference in what we need in a leader in that team, someone who just steps up, gets the goal, puts in a really good performance as well. And Van Dijk done that for Liverpool, but we didn't have someone of that equivalent on our side on Sunday. I felt it should have been Raheem Sterling, and maybe that's harsh to put all that sort of blame and the onus on him to do that. But as the most experienced player, he kind of played probably the poorest out of the 11 that started. He didn't really do anything. And then when he came off, he was almost like disappointed that he was coming off, but he didn't actually do anything. So assessing Raheem Sterling, if you can, is there a case that he's probably maybe got to start thinking of other options away from Chelsea now? Because it seems like he should be the one now, again, leading the line or getting some of these youngsters to get on board with the ideas of what Pochettino's doing. He doesn't seem to be doing that.
No, like you said, we didn't have Thiago Silva on the pitch on Sunday, and you're kind of relying on your second most experienced player, which is Raheem Sterling, 29 years old. But yeah, he was very ineffective on the day, and I think he was probably the first player that Chelsea fans, maybe alongside Jackson, wanted to be substituted off for Nkunku and Madueke. You're looking at him now and you're thinking, this is a player, 29 years old, who's played for Liverpool, who's played for Man City, who's played in World Cups, in European competitions, and Champions League finals. Yeah, you're not really seeing that from him on the pitch at the moment. You don't think he's that type of player. He doesn't look like the type of player that would be in his prime right now. So yeah, there is a kind of question mark on what needs to be done with him in the summer, especially considering his wages as well, which are really, really high. I doubt we're going to recoup any of the value that we paid for, I think was it 50 million to Man City to get hold of him in summer 2022. But I still think we're going to need him just for his, I do use the word experience, even though I don't think he is experienced like we saw on Sunday. But we do need that bit of extra experience, I suppose. But I think there's also reasons maybe to rotate, especially tonight. Maybe give Madueke a chance. We won't be able to rotate as much as we would like, given the Nkunku injury, which we're going to speak about in a bit. But yeah, I think he really needs to up his game at the moment, and just his body language as well, and kind of take those younger players under his wing and show them that this is how you do it when you're kind of in your higher 20 years, and you need to kind of contribute to big games like that.
Yeah, it is disappointing because I think when we signed him, we kind of, I think we both, or one of us at least, said, that's what we're bringing him in for. He's proven that he can play at the top level. He's coming from Manchester City. He needs to come in and try and make something happen. And he sort of did. I remember, I think one of his early games might have been his first game for us at Everton, was it maybe?
Yeah, I think he won us the penalty that day.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
He done really well in that game. I saw signs of it, and I remember saying, I can't remember if it's on this podcast or another one. I did say maybe a year or so, if things don't go well, we're gonna see that a lot of what was happening at Man City and how Raheem was playing there was because he was at Man City, and if he comes here, he's gonna lose a lot of the qualities that Pep expects. That the standards are gonna drop very quickly because he's playing with a group of players that are very different to how Man City and Pep are set up. I feel like we're seeing that now that his standards have dropped, maybe even lower than some of the players that are trying to up there. So it is
Mm.
worrying. It definitely is worrying.
Yeah, and he's been omitted from the last few England squads as well. And he doesn't look like he's the type of player that's playing for a place in an England squad right now.
I think he's as sad as it sounds. I think he's probably thinking of other things in terms of other ventures away from football. I know he's only still relatively young in terms of football years, but I would say he's probably thinking now, what my life after football, what does that look like? You know, I still get the feeling that that was one of the reasons what prized him to come to Chelsea was the fact obviously he's back in London, he's back around a lot of his family members and all the rest of it. So maybe that was the deciding factor as to why he came to Chelsea because you can't be for the football because the projects that he's bought into, we don't even know what it is. So I'm pretty sure he doesn't know what it is either. I want to talk about before we talk about Nkunku and his injury. Obviously, the big thing around the blue £1 billion bottle jobs, which is the thing that Gary Neville has now unfortunately made stick with Chelsea, which is going to stick until we either win the Champions League, the Premier League, or something of some substance. But I think it's really harsh. I think it's really critical. I think there's a couple of points to pick out from because I could see. I mean, obviously, I've watched it back again already. I've depressed myself on the train on Monday, heading home from London, and I was watching bits of the game again, and you could see and hear throughout that commentary, throughout the whole game. It was already one sided. I said that to you before even Sunday, but you could hear how the money of the fact of the money that's been spent kept being brought up, and the fact that they had kids, which let's be honest, they're not kids. This whole thing of Liverpool played their kids is ridiculous. They're all grown men, and if I was one of those kids that was on the bench, the dub them kids, one of those 20 year olds or 19 year olds on the bench for Liverpool, and someone was dubbing me a kid, to me it's almost an insult because you're not a kid at 20, you're 21, you can work, you can vote, you can do all these things, you're an adult. Harvey Elliott is not a
Mm.
kid. I think he's 20. Curtis Jones is not a kid. So for me to kind of, it's almost disrespectful to call them kids. They're professional footballers, they've got professional contracts. I just think it's stupid, and we have to remember this all started from the injuries. If you think back to the build up to the game, they spoke about the number of injuries that that Liverpool had. We've had the same amount of injuries, throughout. But my point, which I'm kind of digressing from, is around the blue £1 billion bottle jobs. Is that something that was very harsh for Gary Neville to say in terms of the statement, the one line that clearly he had up his sleeve throughout the whole game that he wanted to use at the right moment? Was that harsh for him to say that, or is there some truth to that as well?
Well, let's remember firstly that we started the game with a younger average age squad than Liverpool, and we finished the game with a younger average age squad than Liverpool. So if you want to call someone kids, it should have been Chelsea. It should have been Liverpool. And in regards to the Gary Neville's statement, I think there's a bit of accuracy about it. We spent billions and we haven't really achieved anything yet, and we're not really getting the results on the pitch. But I also think it lacks professionalism, if I'm completely honest. I don't think he'd be saying that if it was about City, about Arsenal, about Liverpool as well. And it felt like they chose the narrative to kind of paint Chelsea as these bottle jobs that spent billions under Bowley and are now not getting the results. They've messed up another chance of getting silverware. So I reckon he went to bed the night before with that kind of line planned, and he was going to say it regardless of the occasion, and wanted to wait for the perfect timing to say it. I haven't really heard the context of when he said it or at what stage of the game, but I think it's completely lacks professionalism. And like I said, I don't think he'd be saying that about any other club other than Chelsea. So it seems like there's a specific narrative at the moment that commentators, pundits, people that work in football are trying to pick or choose or kind of choose their words around to kind of portray Chelsea as this team that are slowly trying to build something. Like we mentioned in the previous episode, there is a lot more cohesion in the squad. We won a lot. We won our last three, or we drew one game and won our last two. But yeah, they'll refuse to talk about that. They'll always kind of focus on the billions we've spent. And we have to remember, it's only been a season and a half since the Bowley takeover. Sure, I think you and me are both in agreement that we're not really happy of how things are planned out with the vision, the structure, the transfer policy and the recruitment strategy. But it's going to win it for the long term, and we're going to have to be patient. And these players that we spent supposedly billions on, we all knew that they were young. They were going to come in. They weren't going to kind of hit the ground running straight away. Sure, that still frustrates me because I want immediate results. But these commentators need to understand that. And I know this narrative now is starting to really piss me off, if I'm completely honest.
Yeah, it was definitely one that was up the sleeve because and he said it whilst Van Dijk had just scored the goal in 118 minutes of the game, so it was clearly, and it was coming. I could hear it coming. I remember Gary Neville saying throughout commentary, that the kids run for Liverpool and Chelsea still can't break them down and still can't score against them. It was coming. You could feel it. You could hear it coming. I mean, there's definitely truth to it. I'll be 110% honest. There's definitely truth to it. You can't. I've said it throughout. You can't spend £1 billion and still look as bad as we do. I'm not saying every game we should be smashing teams. 7-8-0, but the performances sometimes, and not the Carabao Cup final, because I think we played really well in that game in spells. But there are games, most recently Wolves, for instance, where you just can't. Those results can't happen after £1 billion. They just can't. A 1-0 maybe, 2-1, 2-0 maybe, but the way we got demolished, and sometimes it's the performance, not even the scoreline. They can't happen after £1 billion. So there is some truth to it, but I do think the bias and the this narrative that clubs don't spend money. I mean, United have spent how much money? They're still in loads of debt. I mean, even with the takeover, they're still in debt. So, I don't think, and maybe this is where it goes back to, I don't think there should be, for instance, Jamie Carragher commentating on Liverpool games or Gary Neville commentating on United games. There isn't a Chelsea equivalent of that at Sky. So I do think they should have a neutral person, especially in a final. I mean, there's so much passion in a game anyway, and I think they should have a neutral commentator commentating the game, someone who's not associated with one club or has a ulterior motive about another club as well. Just have someone neutral, have someone fresh as well. I think sometimes I'm sick of hearing the same voices. So yeah, I mean,
Steve McManaman, another ones who
yeah, I
just
mean,
absolutely does my head in.
they shouldn't be
Yeah,
on there. They shouldn't be on there. They need to go out and find a new lease of commentators, and before we end up in the same routine where we had certain pundits that we wanted to get rid of, or we weren't, they needed to move on, and they did eventually. But we're going to end up in the same route of having these sort of
yeah.
same chain of dinosaurs. Before we move on, Todd Bowley, Clear Lake, you kind of touched on it then around, it's going to be a slow process, but how slow is a process going to be? Because at the moment, I mean, I am literally at the point now where I don't trust the ownership, the direction, the projects, the vision. I don't trust the manager. I don't trust the majority of the players. So I'm at that point where there isn't anything for me to now say that Pochettino should even have another summer window or anything. I just don't see it. I don't know who should come in for him, but I don't see how Pochettino, if he loses tonight more so, could even continue his job. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a slow process, and I think that the slow in the fact that we called this game our most important game of the season, and that's the Carabao Cup final, whereas 3-4 years ago when we lost it against was it City in 2019? I think we all dubbed it the Mickey Mouse Trophy or whatever. So we've completely changed our objectives and our goals. We've gone from competing in the Champions League to winning the Super Cup and the Club World Cup to now praying that we can win a Carabao Cup. And then now we're talking about salvaging something from our season in an FA Cup fifth round game against Leeds. So our objectives and our goals have completely changed, and it is going to be a slow process. I think next season is going to be same. We're going to have to hope that we're going to do something in the cup competitions, because right now, given the kind of gap there is in quality between us and the likes of City, Liverpool, Arsenal, I'd even put Villa in there. I'd put Wolves, given how well they're playing at the moment as well. So yeah, it's a slow process, but like you said, do you give Pochettino another window? Personally, I would, because I still don't think a lot of our issues and problems are down to Pochettino right now. I think it's a lot to do with the inexperience of these players, the lack of motivation that they have. Sure, maybe that's tied somehow to the manager, but I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done around these players' mentality. I think you go 1-0 down, like we did against Wolves, they just crumbled. Or was it 2-1 down? They just crumbled. Then we conceded a third, then we conceded a fourth. and that needs to change. And I'm almost certain that had Liverpool scored early in that game against Wembley, we would have crumbled. We took that 0-0 lead in 0-0 scoreline into half time, into full time, and it gave the players a bit of motivation, a bit of hope, a bit of a glimmer of that they could win this game. But no, this team still lacks that winning mentality and that kind of fighting spirit or that hunger to play for the badge. And can Pochettino be the person to change that? I don't know if that's purely down to the manager.
I mean, I was having a conversation yesterday about obviously Everton and their points deduction, and there will become a point, and it will catch up to us very soon, that we will be in the same boat of an investigation and all the rest of it. Now, there's nothing to say that we don't get a points deduction, whether that's this season or next season. But if we do, and ours is a lot more charges, a lot more implications of FFP than it is for Everton, we could be talking about a massive deficit in points deduction before the season's even started. Now, if we go into that, and this is just hypothetical, and obviously no one knows what's going to happen, but if we go into that, say we get a 15 or 20 point deduction with a massive fine on top of it, we're playing catch up already against certain teams. And I just think that at the moment, I just think when you're in almost 2 years into something, you want to see some kind of I get it now. The penny should drop at some point. That moment hasn't happened for me. We're 2 years in, so I'm not saying we should be winning the Premier League, the Champions League, or even the FA Cup. I think even that's a stretch at the moment. But just I don't see any. I don't under. And this is why Poch is struggling. Maybe Poch is struggling because he doesn't even know the vision himself. He's been brought in to do a job. He's been given all the resources, or what he thinks is the resources, or has he? Has he chosen all these players? And if he doesn't know the vision, or he doesn't know the direction, or it keeps changing, that's another thing. They're changing. If you remember, the profile is sign all these young players under 18 and get them through for 5 years' time. How's that going to help Pochettino now? I mean, how does that help him in today's world? Not 5 years down the road when he's possibly not even the manager anymore. I just don't see that. So you're right. You can't just blame Pochettino, but the results have to change on the pitch for me as well.
Completely, yeah. And I saw a tweet, I think that sums it up perfectly, that said that Chelsea's aim is, compared to the Roman era, from what this person is hearing, is just to be competitive at the moment. It's to be a business that is churning out money every year, and you're staying within your means, and you're just making sure you stay relevant, which I think is exactly what Chelsea are trying to do now: churn money, be competitive, stay relevant. But this is not going to work in the Premier League in this day and age and the standard of Chelsea that we're used to having previously. And I think it's a model that Bowley's trying to inspire himself from the Tampa Bay Rays, who I think maybe are an NFL team who are purely data-driven, but it just hasn't come to fruition at all for the time being. And like you said, it's almost a year and a half in, 2 years in, and the penny hasn't dropped yet in seeing, oh yeah, this is what we're trying to do, this is what we're trying to build, other than the fact that we've gotten rid of all the experienced players in our team and replaced them with 19, 20, 21-year-olds on ridiculously long contracts that just aren't performing well yet. That's the moment the penny drops for me, thinking we've completely fucked up in the way that we've gotten rid of all the experienced players, the Kantes, the Jorginhos, the Kovacics, the Loftus-Cheeks, the Azpilicuetas, and we've gotten Mudryk, Badiashile, Madueke, these type of guy. Sure, I think there's players in there, but are they the type of players that are going to get you top four, win you FA Cups, get you back in the Champions League? No, they're not.
And
Completely not.
Worry. That's the worry, isn't it? Because if you spent all that money and you've put them on 7-year deals, you have no choice but to trust them to do that. You have no choice but unless you sell them for a loss, which we can't do. Who's going to come in and pay what we paid for Mudryk or Madueke? Even maybe Caicedo in a year or two. Maybe Enzo. Who's going to come and pay money? No one.
Even the manager at the moment, I don't think he's trusting some of these players either. You look at Mudryk, apart from Wembley, where he didn't really have a choice because we had so much, we didn't have any options off the bench. Yeah. But against Villa, Palace, and City, he didn't even come off the bench, did he? And that's very telling that the manager's got this £80 million player and he doesn't even want to play him. And then you're going to get this issue after a while where, should we get rid of Pochettino, we bring someone else in? You're going to have all these players that, again, are kind of players brought in by different managers that could be unwanted there. And then we're not going to be able to get rid of them because, like you said, they're on these crazy contracts and their values just skyrocketed. So So yeah, it's a big fuck up on terms of Bowley's behalf. But as long as he's churning in money and Chelsea are remaining competitive and relevant, I don't think he minds.
The money comes in, but the results don't. Seems to be the way forward for Todd Bowley and co. Christopher Nkunku, who played from the 67th minute, I think he came on Sunday, has now had a fresh injury, which has been confirmed by Maurizio Pochettino at the press conference yesterday. He's expected to be out for 3 to 4 weeks. Um, it's not even funny, but another injury, another injury. He can't catch a break at the moment. Nkunku, what happens now for Nkunku? Is this just we write off this season for him? We put away the blue balloon. I don't think we're going to see that this season now. Do we just give him a fresh whole sort of rehabilitation? Might see him roll out at, back end of the season, maybe give him the last 2 games of the season to get some fitness in, and then give him a full preseason and hope that he can stay injury free next season.
Yeah, it's frustrating because I remember back in November we kept saying things aren't going well at the moment, but we've got Nkunku coming back to look forward to. And there was that December period where he got us the goal against Wolves. Sure, it was just a consolation goal, but we thought, all right, he's here, he means business. But yeah, we can't rely on him now. And the warning signs were there. His injury record back at Leipzig was atrocious, if I'm honest. I've got it up here, actually. So going back to 2018, 2019, when he was back at Paris, he had a groin injury, which kept him out for 13 days. In 2021, he had an ankle problem, 32 days whilst at Leipzig. Same season, back problem, out for 7 days. Second season at Leipzig, out with coronavirus, 7 days. Wrist injury, 3 days. A torn lateral knee ligament in 2022, 83 days whilst at Leipzig. Fitness issues that kept him out for 10 days. A torn muscle fiber, 39 days. And then whilst at Chelsea, his longest injury of all, which kept him out for 109 days, which was a knee injury. Then out for 42 days because of fitness. And then hip injury, which I think was January time, 23 days. And now this unknown injury that's popped up, which seems to be 3 to 4 weeks is what we're hearing about now. So we should have known before we signed him that this guy is going to be one of those players. Put him in the same bracket as a Reece James, a Kante, who play max maybe half the games during a season. And can you rely on a player that can only play half the games during the season? No.
I think the difference with Reece James and even, well, more so N'Golo Kante, you probably take a 50% N'Golo Kante over some of the players that we had. Even now, you still throw him into a team because he can still maybe do a job. But we haven't even seen that with Nkunku. We don't even know. I think he's made 10 appearances for the club, majority of them off the bench as well. We haven't really seen what he can do, what his best attributes, where does he fit into this team. We don't even know that yet. And we're what is it? Nearly the 1st of March in a couple of days. So, I mean, that's just it's a concern. It's a massive concern that he almost can't play back to back. It's almost a Reece James effect. Medical staff, maybe the rehabilitation program. I don't know what it is, but something doesn't seem to be working well, and it hasn't for years. It isn't just like a new thing that since Maurizio Pochettino's come in. We've been talking about this for how long now, since we started the podcast, about injuries and the constant injuries that we've had. So it seems to be something that just at Cobham doesn't go well, whether it's cursed or just shit in terms of how we bring our players back from injuries. But something has to change because we are heavily reliant on someone like Nkunku to help get goals in this squad. We have to.
Yeah, but it never used to be like this. I feel like prior to maybe 2019, 2020, I just can't remember us having this many injuries. So I don't know what is it because these players just spend too much time in the gym, carrying weights, doing squats. But it seems like their bodies now are very, very fragile compared to players back in the day who arguably wouldn't look after their fitness as much and their diets. And so it seems quite telling that, and it's not just Chelsea, I think there's other clubs as well that have struggled a lot with injuries.
Arsenal, you look
But
at
Chelsea,
Jesus as well,
Arsenal,
Liverpool,
Jesus, John Stones at City, who's out of majority of the time. You look at Liverpool at the moment. You just wonder if we spoke about, I think it was 2020, 2021, where they were playing catch up on so many games and cup competitions, and whether that kind of with the Euros that same summer where the players would struggle with fitness. But with the depth that these teams have now, they should be able to cope with it. So I think these players need to be extra careful with their recovery periods. I know that my mate sees Mudryk every single day in the gym in Imperial Wharf,
I bet he
and he's
does.
squatting. Yeah, he's squatting, carrying weights, doing all kind of things, and he's on his own in there. So I doubt he's doing that specifically on a Chelsea Football Club tailored program. It seems purely for him, for his Instagram, for his own kind of what he wants to, the muscles he wants to build. So yeah,
He
these
needs
players
a
need to be
football.
extra careful.
He needs a football
He
and a
needs it.
goal, and
That's what he needs.
almost do some practice on the pitch rather than in the gym. To be honest, but
Completely, and he needs his phone confiscated from him as
yeah,
well.
100%. Now, I mean, we've got the Club World Cup coming up in not too long now. We're only playing one game a week at the moment. I think the Club World Cup is played in between the break of the season anyway. But I mean, I'm hearing the word tired and fatigued quite a lot, and we're only playing one game a week. I mean, there's some clubs. I mean, Liverpool played in the week, the Wednesday, and then they played on the Sunday and still managed to beat us. It's just, I don't
It's
know.
nonsense.
In hindsight, it's good that we're not in the, European football because I don't. Our squad isn't built for it. It should be, which just goes back to the bottle job statement. We should be because we spent £1 billion. We should be able to have the depth in the squad to be able to deal with injuries other than Nkunku. You look at City when they lose someone, they've almost got a light for light. Like I think was it yesterday I was watching them. They brought off Jack Grealish who got injured. Jeremy Doku came on. I mean, what a replacement to bring on. They we haven't got that, and I think that's the worry. If we enter into a European competition, you have to have the squad to do that. And by the squad, I don't mean quality. I mean, the depth to do that. Fofana's injured. Chalobah's now back in the fold. He's now suddenly getting game time again because Pochettino's got no choice. Badia Shield's out. Thiago Silva's out. Reece James is out. We've spent £1 billion. We should have players in there that we can just like for like swap over. But yeah, we've got. I think we've got to assess Nkunku in the summer and just hope he gets a really good period of time where he's not playing football in the summer, the preseason. He gets through it this time rather than he plays really well and then he gets injured. We want to see a full preseason and he hits the ground running next summer because as much as these guys are on long contracts, the fans will give them a lot of pressure regardless of the length of their contracts.
Completely. And I also worry that I think similarly to Gareth Southgate, Didier Deschamps has his favourites in the France squad. And I think he's one of those players that often gets picked for the team squads. So he'll probably be on the flight to Germany for the Euros with France, which is probably not what Chelsea fans want to hear. So the last thing you want him is coming back to pre-season injured. But yeah, he needs to have a long kind of summer break, rest, and you've got to just hope that this 3 to 4 week injury, mystery injury, because we still don't know what part of his body has been affected, whether it came in the game against Liverpool, if it was just a fluky accident at home or on the training pitch at Cobham. But yeah, you've got to hope that's nothing too serious and it's not maybe the recurring knee injury that he had before Christmas, and he's able to somehow contribute in maybe the April-May period.
Let's move on. Let's talk about tonight's game. Big game. We don't have big games anymore, do we?
It's against Leeds. It's always a big game when we play
against
Leeds.
It is a big game. The history is there between the two clubs. If people who may not know this, but there is a lot of history between the two clubs. Leeds are doing very well in the Championship. Let's start with that one there. But this is a game for me that Maurizio Pochettino has to get right. He cannot put out a team, in my opinion, that, yes, you're going to have to make changes. You're going to have to tinker with the squad, but we need a really good, positive, convincing performance against Leeds. There cannot be any excuses about anything after this for me personally. But what's your initial thoughts going into the game? Home, Stamford Bridge, 7:30 kickoff. It's almost ready for us to go and get that horrible Sunday defeat out of our system.
Yeah, this game could go one of two ways. It could go that the players want to respond after Sunday's heartbreak and disappointment, and they want to amend things with the fans, and they show that on the pitch, and we hit the ground running, and we get a couple goals, and we comfortably beat Leeds, who, like you said, are a bit of a fierce rival of us, given what happened. I think it was in the 1970 FA Cup final and the replay that happened afterwards. Or it could go another way, which is these players just now are demotivated. They're emotionally and physically drained after a Sunday. And I think that's a likely option given how inexperienced and young they are. And they just crumble under the pressure, and Leeds get a shock result, and they go through. I really hope it's the first one, and these players show a bit of fight and hunger and respond and do please the fans. Because you have to remember we played very well in spells against Sunday, and we need to kind of work on what we did really well and continue to do that and build on that. And like you also said, Leeds are actually doing pretty well. They're second in the championship, I think 6 points behind Leicester City in first place. So they're in that automatic promotion place. And it's the type of team that we will be competing against probably next season in the Premier League. So it's going to be not the Championship, the Premier League. We're still going to be in the Premier League. So yeah, it's a big game. I think Pochettino does have to make a couple of changes to the lineup, I believe. I think we're going to talk about our lineups, but there's a few players I like to include that maybe haven't featured as much that I think can provide a bit of something tonight. But yeah, a last chance to salvage something from this season. Going another good cup run, because I think top 4, top 6 even, I think is out of the question now.
Yeah.
So yeah, big game.
Yeah, I don't think I'd even want top 4, top 6 this season now. But no, I agree with everything you said. I think Leeds haven't lost since the 29th of December. I think it was a defeat to West Brom. So they've gone on a really good run. FA Cup as well. I think they played Peterborough, and then they played Plymouth, I think, in the last 2 respective rounds. So they've done really well to get where they are. Is it Daniel Farke? Is he still there? Is he still the manager? I think he is, isn't he? So I think, he's obviously come in, he's changed things, he's done what he needed to do. Our old friend Ethan Ampadu, I'm sure, will be there. He's having a really good season from when I've been watching them. Obviously, Somerville, Daniel James is still there at Leeds as well. So they have a good squad, and they are a very attacking squad. So, it's not going to be. It was never going to be easy anyway. And I think you're right. I think I said maybe to you or maybe to someone else that after Sunday, a lot of these players would have checked out for the season now. They won't be. They know there's nothing on the table to win. They'll probably just see this now as a wind down to the season. Start thinking about Marbella and the Maldives and all the rest of these destinations that they like to go in the summer. But look, I mean, we for me personally, I just want to see a good result. I want to see a good performance from the team. I want to be able to see some improvement, because yes, we played well against Liverpool on Sunday, but this is a different ball game. This is a team that is doing very well in a league below us, so we shouldn't have the issues that we had even against Liverpool on Sunday. Lineups. Let's go for lineups. Let's go. You just mentioned there, obviously earlier on, you talked about Robert Sanchez and Petrovic, and maybe seeing Sanchez come back into the team. You mentioned, was it Moira? I think you mentioned to me offline as well.
Yeah,
I might see.
yeah.
So what would be from goalkeeper to attack? Who would be your 11 to start?
I think it's important to know as well that unlike the previous FA Cup rounds, this game, there won't be a replay. It will go to extra time and penalties should it be a draw after 90 minutes. So maybe the lineup should be tailored for potentially extra time should it be a draw. Morera, I think that's an option. I was surprised not to see his name on the bench against Liverpool. Then I remembered he played, I think, against Wimbledon in the League Cup. So I think he might be cup tied. Would he be? Or would he be cup tied? He would have, maybe because he can't play again. I'm not sure. But Cassidy, another one who can't feature, cup tied as well, because he played for Leicester against Millwall, I believe, in the FA Cup. But yeah, I think I'd stick with Petrovic. Like I said at the start of the recording, he's in red hot form, and I thought he was fantastic. He made that one save, I believe, from almost point blank range. I think it might have been Gakpo or one of the centre backs, where he just tipped it over the post. 2 centre backs. If he's fit, I would go with Silva. If he's fit, I'm not sure if he's fit. And alongside him, I'd go with Trevor Chalobah. I think this is an opportunity for him to come back into the fold, play a part. Maybe tell Pochettino, listen, I'm here. If you need me, I could still play. And you have to remember he's a Cobham Academy boy, so he'll want to he knows what the FA Cup means to being English. So I'll stick with Chalobah. Right back, I'm going to go with Alfie Gilchrist. I think this is the type of a game though, a player like that, he's got almost a point to prove. He's going to be really hungry to get starts, and I think it was against Preston he played, or Middlesbrough, and he had a decent game. And then left back, I'm going to go with Ben Chilwell over Gusto just for the experience. I'm going to go with Gallagher and Caicedo as my two centre midfielders. I would rest Enzo for this one, maybe have him come off the bench, and I will go with Palmer as the number 10. Then I would go with Madueke and Sterling with Jackson up top.
I do like that team actually. I like that team. I
Mm.
think would I change? I think I would only change a couple things. I think I would stick with my back two. So Dezazi and Colwell, I would start again.
Mm-hmm.
I think consistency today, and I think Leeds will really attack us from the start. They're gonna. I worry about Chalobah, who's missed a lot of football. Silva, who I
True.
don't think will be fully fit, and I just look at that Leeds attack, and I think that's not to say Colwell and
Patrick,
Dezazi will do well.
Patrick Bamford.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So imagine he scores a hat trick. I agree with you about Gilchrist and Ben Chilwell. I think two really good options to add to that back line as well. I would probably I would stick with Petrovic. I think I said before that Pochettino, for me personally, this is a must-win game. Not because he's going to be sacked if he loses, but I think just because of the fans' expectation now. You've lost the final. The fans want to see a really good performance. And I think if you tweak this squad too much, you're going to disrupt what you've done against City, against Crystal Palace, and so on. And I think you have to try and keep some sort of structure to the team. So let's not mess around with it too much. I would actually start Enzo and Caicedo. I would. I think our next game is Brentford. I think 3 p.m.
Saturday, yeah.
Yeah. So I think plenty of time, to recover. One game a week. I would start Noni Madueke, and I would start Mudryk in this game. I know. You gotta hear me out. But I would start him more for the pace, and I think he would. I think we have to, because I think sometimes I criticize players who don't really get a good run of games, and they come on and they don't really do well, or they start the game but they haven't played the last two games. So I'd love to see Mudryk playing 3 games, but I wouldn't love to. But I think he deserves. We have to give him an opportunity consistently to play for a period of time before I can fully assess how shit he is or how good he is. And that's just, to me, that's just my honest opinion. So I think in this game, I think I'd start Enzo, Caicedo, Gallagher, keep their normal sort of triangle structure. Gallagher slightly ahead of the other two. Medwecki and Mudryk both worry me because I don't think they've got anything bar a bit of pace. They don't really have anything that they can put into the box. They can't really beat their man. So they worry me. But I would strangely go with those two as my wide options. And I think I would go with Nicholas Jackson going forward. But there is talk about Washington, which if you check social media, there was a couple of people saying about Washington possibly, if not being on the bench, possibly even starting the game. But
Did he score a hat trick as well recently in like a youth game or something like that? I think.
But it's a big game. Leeds is going to be a big. I know it's not in terms of the grander scheme of things, in terms of what we want to get out of the season, but I just mean on the night. The fans, the players, the pressure, the fatigue, that defeat against Liverpool on Sunday. All that's going to be playing into the minds, and I think maybe throwing Washington in to the Lions Den, where there's an expectation we must win this game, I think is a bit harsh on him. I'd probably bring him on. I'd think I'd start Jackson, who is your out-and-out striker, and maybe I'd bring Washington, depending on how the game's going. I'd probably bring him on. But we need to...
No Cole Palmer?
No, I think he needs a rest. I think he looked really tired against Liverpool. I think he looked really, really tired and kind of contradicting myself. But I think he has been one of those players, very much like Conor Gallagher. If I could maybe rest him, I would, because I think he's someone else. I think he came off because he just looked shattered. Actually, I don't know. On Sunday, there was a thing.
I think he started like all our games since we signed him. I'm
and
pretty
he's done
sure
the
something
most
like
running
that.
as well.
Almost.
If you think
Yeah.
about all the kilometers he's running per game, he's doing too much. And we just spoke about Nkunku injuries. These things can, enhance the chance of someone else getting injured, just not resting them. So, as much as we need to win tonight, I think we need to also try and manage some people's minutes and give them a rest where we can. And I think that's where you put Cole Palmer, on the bench for a game like this tonight. But should we lose the game, what would be your? I know your reaction would be I'm pissed off, but I mean, what would be your? I don't know, your next thing. What next? Because then I think there's some part of the fan base that's kind of clinging on to the fact we are still in the FA Cup. There's a chance of silverware, but if we come out of that, we literally always automatically know that our season is pretty much over. We just go in on
Yeah,
a Saturday to turn up and watch football for 90 minutes.
literally, it was about literally what I was going to say. It would almost be like how I felt end of last season after we got knocked out by Real Madrid. I was just going to games thinking, all right, I'm just going to go watch Chelsea. But I was actually going there thinking like 3 points, we're going to get into top four. We're going to go on a good cup run. We're into the quarterfinals, the semi-finals. There's Wembley to look forward to next week. So yeah, if we lose tonight, I just feel like our season is basically over. Let's be honest. There's literally nothing. I mean, sure, there's still football to play for. There's still a slight chance of us creeping into a European spot, but realistically, our season will be over. So yeah, I think that's something to talk about in the next recording, depending on how the result goes.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be at Stamford Bridge if we lose tonight because I think yeah, it won't be good. It won't be good at all.
No.
You just mentioned it then around the league. I think some results, actually bearing in mind we didn't play in the league last weekend, but some results went in our favour. Yeah, I mean we're only 4 points off seventh, so I think some teams done us a favour, but we've got to take one game at a time. I think tonight is obviously Leeds. It's a game that we should be winning. We should be beating Leeds, in my opinion, albeit, they've got a really good squad on really great form. They've got a good manager that's doing well with him in the Championship. We times that by 10 with Pochettino and the squad that we do have available to us. So, score predictions. Where do we start? Where do we go?
I think if Chelsea come out and show that they can score goals, I think we'll win 2-1. If we struggle, if players look a bit tired, and I say tired, I mean it more like mentally tired and they drain from Sunday, then I think it will be 2-2 or 1-1 and go to extra time, and then anything can happen. But I'll stick with my first prediction of 2-1 Chelsea.
I know I've just moaned for pretty much 52 minutes of a podcast about Chelsea, but I actually think we're going to win tonight. And maybe that's because I want us to, but I think we will. I'm thinking back to that Villa game, and I don't know why, but there's just sometimes we can flick a switch and we just play well.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back to that Villa game, and that took me by surprise, to be honest. And I think tonight will be the same, but for the right reasons, because I think we should be doing that. We should be beating them. So I'm gonna go 3-0. I'm gonna go 3-0 Chelsea. I think we will play really well, and I'm hoping there's a part of the team that will want to put what they didn't do right on Sunday right tonight as well. So yeah, I'm gonna go 3-0. I'm gonna go 3-0.
Nice. Last time we played Leeds, do you remember the score and do you remember who scored?
This is your job. That's your forte. I'm rubbish at things like that. But
the goal scorer has been injured all season. I'll give you a hint.
Reece James must have been Reece James.
Another one that we haven't mentioned in a long time on this podcast.
I'm trying to think who would have been there.
And I actually bumped into him in front of Stamford Bridge with his hood up before the Wolves game.
Was it Fofana?
It was Fofana, yeah.
Fofana, yeah.
1-0 win against Leeds. Yeah.
God, that's so. Is that so? When was that? Was not the Conor Gallagher red card, was it?
No, that was March 2023, 1-0. So literally this time last year almost. And it's when we went a decent run after. I think we came back against Dortmund the following week. We got a win against Leicester. But yeah, I think the reverse fixture, we lost 3-0 against Leeds. And was it Koulibaly who got sent off in that one?
Koulibaly, wasn't it? Yeah. It was. Yeah. I mean, we've got.
I'll take a 1-0. I'll take a 1-0.
Yeah. Who needs 3? I'll just take 1 goal. Yeah. But let us know your thoughts. Let us know what you think about the game tonight. Let us know your score predictions, predicted lineups as well. And as I said at the start of the podcast, if you are new to the channel, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, and then make sure you hit the Linktree link in the description to go back and listen to previous episodes, and also follow the social accounts as well. Theo, as always, thank you very much. Pleasure as always. Let's hope we're talking about a victory in the next episode and not another defeat, which could potentially happen. But let's stay positive. Until next time, thank you very much. Enjoy the game, Theo. I'm sure you'll be
Cheers.
scooting over later on today to watch that. And anyone else who's going, enjoy, and we'll be back soon. Thank you very much for listening.